Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by, and this definitely is the last part of the mid-season updates. You're flipping November if I take much longer. So yeah, we'll move onwards from T right through to the Zs in this last part. Should be quite a short one. Okay, this is the Tulumnias. Once upon a time this used to be a good set of plants, not so much now, for various reasons. Okay, going round the list then. This one is Jarak Flyer Black Magic, and this is now growing well. The previous growth is quite nicely hydrated, the oldest growth isn't, but the latest growth looks strong and a good new root system pushing out. You're going to make it, that's not a problem. Next one, not so sure. I don't think this one's long for the world. This is another, this is fantastic, this one. Tulumnia fantastic. Well, it's far from it. I don't think that one is going to make it. I really don't. It's got lousy root system and no signs of new growth or new roots. I don't think that's going to make it. This is another Jarak Flyer. This is Pink Brush. This may make it and it may not. All of those leaves are dehydrated. Its saving grace may be that new growth coming up the middle of the plant, which if it can get a root system out, it may make it. But the roots on the main plant are not that viable. They do hydrate, but they're not that good, and I can't hydrate the plant. It just won't have it. So its only hope now is that new growth. That one got just ripped apart with scale, just never really recovered. This is another Jarak Flyer. Just a word about that. Anything with Jarak Flyer on them, it came from a French nursery. I bought 5. I think I've got 3 left. One of them was virtually dead when I got it, and one of them has ceased to be since then. This one doesn't look good. It is dehydrated, but the latest 2 leaves it's pushed out of the same fan look okay. No sign of a new growth at the moment, and not a very good root system. On the fence with that one, I'm afraid. Now, this one's Tulumnia Peach. The roots on this are viable. There are signs of new ones coming out. It has got a new fan growing on the lower plant, and a little one coming on the upper plant. So both of those pairs of that pair of plants both have a new growth. There are signs of new roots, and the original fans are not badly desiccated. They're not fully hydrated, but that's on the mend basically. That should be okay. And this is Oriental Pear. It's another one that's been split into 2. When they all got ripped apart by scale, I had to sort of get rid of the parts that weren't going to recover, leaving what's left. Signs of a new growth right at the base there. Another one pushing up partly through the plant there, splitting that leaf with new roots. So, and on the smaller part we have signs of a new growth, and I can already see directly now in the center of the shot, you see those pale patches at the base of the left hand leaf? That is scale hiding inside that leaf, so I'm going to have to get at that one right now. Just cannot shift them on these plants. They've had systemic spray, they've had soapy washes, they've had dunking in alcohol. I've tried everything and they just keep coming back. Anyway, I think that one will mend. A word about the 2 I've just done, Peach and Oriental Pear. They both came from a Kearns at an RHS show. Anna Maria bought one at exactly the same time off the same shelf. Hers had Fusarium, so I highly suspect both of these had as well. It'd be unusual to find one plant in a batch, the only one. Well, that's been treated, but it would make them a weak plant until the new growth grows clean and new roots come out. So yeah, I suspect those may well have been infected plants, but they're both recovering. They're both sort of coming on. Now this one is Tulumnia Sunset Pink, and this one's not doing bad. It wasn't hit so bad with the scale as some of the others, and you can see it looks a stronger plant, more strappy leaves. There's a bit of desiccation on that one, but the new growths are pushing out new roots, it's on the mend. Several new growths there. One in the centre of the shot now, one slightly to the left. So that one's on the mend. That should be okay. Now this is a little no ID. I will know which one it is and where it came from when it blooms, because one of the no IDs did bloom once and I've got a picture, but whether that's one of the ones I've lost or this one, I don't know. This looks tiny, it always has been, but it's growing new roots and a new growth, and it's not desiccated. So although it looks tiny, that will grow on. That one will make it. Little no ID. And the last one is my only species, which begins with a U. Europhila. Quite badly desiccated, this one, but a new growth, a new growth coming out of both parts of the plant, with accompanying new roots. So although the old part of the plant looks bad and is desiccated, it is got two new growths with new roots, so it's going to make it. Long way off blooming this time, but coming on. So that's the Tullamnias. Okay, on to the Vandas then. These are going to be out of order because it's the way they come down off the shelf, but they're all Vandas. This is the one that has the bright orange blooms on with the smaller flowers. Two spikes coming on at the moment. Plant's growing well. It's got a good root system, a long root system, many growing tips on the roots. Some older ones, might be able to trim some of those off at the end of the year. But, you know, you can be deceived. What looks like a root that isn't doing much can suddenly decide to push out side branches. So, anyway, that's that one. Okay, most of the rest of the Vandas will have pop-ups for their names because they're too long and complicated for me to memorise, and a pop-up's just easier. But this is the large white one with the hint of purple and the deep purple lip. This is its second spike this year, so I'm pleased with the progress on this one. But the progress on this one may give it a limited life. It's getting too big for me to accommodate. If you look at the top growth on that, it's extensive. You know, and it's still ongoing, and it's already an incredibly tall plant with huge big chunky roots sticking out in all directions. That plant is now over 3 foot, about 3 foot, probably just over a metre in new stuff. So it's getting too big. There will come a time when I can't accommodate this anymore, and the main reason is the sheer size of the spikes and the fact that they grow vertical. If they hung out sideways, no problem. The plant, which is the bit that needs the light, would be up near the roof. But as soon as this one pushes a spike out, the plant is 18 inches to 2 feet below the top of the roof, which means the bottom of the plant is sat in the middle of all my other orchids. So this one's getting a bit big. I'm not quite sure what to do with it. But at the moment I'm enjoying the blooms because they are very, very nice. Now this is a different Vanda altogether because this one is wider than it is tall. And this one, strangely enough, is easy to accommodate. It's wide and flat. Brilliant. It's got a good root system on it. Many growing tips within that root system. This bloomed for the first time last year. Not the first time for me, the first time ever. So relatively it's a young plant. Top growth is brilliant, pushing on at a rate of knots. I'm just going to have a quick dig while I'm here. Nope, no sign of any spikes yet. But then, as I said, it was a first time bloomer last year, quite late in the year. And obviously it has to produce a fair bit of new growth, which it's doing. So I'm expecting it to bloom this year, but we'll see how we go. But the plant's doing nicely, and it's not a tall plant, it's a wide plant. So you definitely get to stay. I don't know how big it's going to eventually get, but at the moment, easily accommodated, that one. I do have 2 young Vandas that were bought as tiny little seedlings, basically. I didn't realise they were tiny little seedlings. Or I probably just wouldn't have got them, but they're a bit of fun. They're lurking away in the background. This one's been bare rooted this year, and it is growing new leaves. It's got a reasonable root system for a tiny little plant. Got some active growing tips. So it's growing, that's the main thing. And the other one was slightly larger as a seedling, but this one has grown well since I got it. It's pushing up. I don't know at what size it's going to bloom. Certainly not yet, I don't think. Nowhere near enough leaves. But again, some nice active root growth, firmly attached to that basket, so it's going to live in there for the rest of its life. And hopefully the roots will eventually just hang in the air like they do. But yeah, it's coming on. It's got some top growth and some good roots. So nice. That's a nice little plant, that one. And this one is the large blue, and it's just amazing how much these blooms have grown in size. But yeah, I mean, I can't fault those blooms. Beautiful depth of colour, beautiful markings, the deepest purple lip, gorgeous blooms. But you know, that one's just opening. The size of that compared with the one underneath. It's brilliant the way they just grow. As a plant, pushes up top growth, relatively compact, firmly attached to that basket. It's not ever coming out of there, I don't think. And it's got a good root system, goes off in all directions. Some going upwards, some going sideways, and some hanging down. So it's a nice plant, and it's just gorgeous, isn't it? This is the species Vanda roblingiana. You look at, this is a recent attack of scale. Got down in between the leaves. I mean, they're dead now, they're gone, but those pale patches are now there. Can't go away. They're just going to grow on up with the plant now. 4 spikes on this one. This one is nearly fully open. This one's just started. The other 2 are a bit behind. So I should have blooms over a long period. Attractive blooms on this. I'm not going to do it today, but I will get the tripod set up at some point and get a real close-up of these blooms. They do warrant close study. They're not very big, but lovely colours. It's effectively a greeny yellow with a sort of burgundy colour. You know, muted colours. It is a species after all, but lovely shaped lip on that. But plant's doing okay at the top, apart from the scale. The rest of it's tatty. It's got an incredibly poor root system. It's only grown one new decent root this year. Has a kiki at the bottom. So that's that one. This one lives in the Vanda section, despite beginning with R. This is Rhynchoredes Bangkok Sunset Variety Fragrant. Well, I'll let you know. The plant is growing quite nicely. I think there's a leaf out to the right. That was brand new when I got the plant. I haven't had it long. Next one pushing up to the left, and another new one coming up the centre. It has the most appalling root system with no new root tips anywhere. And yet, what's there hydrates the plant fine, or it wouldn't be growing as well as that. It just wouldn't. So the roots work. There's just no new growing tips. So an oddity. It's not what you would normally expect. But the next 2 plants I'm going to show may be the reason. Rhynchoredes. What's the rhyncho bit then? Okay, these are Rhyncho stylus giganteas, and back to the Rhyncho element of Rhynchoredes, I believe. And the trait with these, big fat roots, very rarely, and very, very slow to grow, and quite reluctant to branch, unless I'm doing something dramatically wrong. They are warm growers, so again, they slowed down in the winter virtually to a standstill because it's just too cold. But, you know, they're growing. This one's got a nice big fat new root. I have to handle this pot carefully because there's a friend lives in there, which you've seen before. It doesn't look very healthy, this plant, but it's growing a new root and it's growing a new leaf. And this one has the better root system. Well, there's actually a new root tip there. And some, yeah, I suppose so. It's not what I'd call a brilliant root system for the amount of time I've had it. And the roots in this one are all buried inside there somewhere, so they're not very easily seen. But this one's the better looking plant and the larger plant. This was its latest leaf, previous leaf, and it's now growing a new one again. So it's growing, but not a sign of a new root this year at all, anywhere. So that's those 2. That's the end of the Vandas section. Nearly there. These are my two little Neofinetia falcatas, and although they've been renamed Vanda, my only slight giving in is that I moved them in my notes to underneath the Vandas, so they're by the Vandas, but in my book they're Neofinetias. This is a nice variegata one. Pop-ups for these, their varieties are just too difficult for me to... Oh, I suppose I could show the labels, couldn't I? Save a bit of work later on. So that's one. See, I've even got Vanda in brackets on the label in case they ever go anywhere. This one, the variegated one, has bloomed on quite a few occasions. Some new fans coming up in there, but it's recently been potted in moss, which is a far more traditional way of growing neos, so I'm trying that now. They were always mounted before. And then this is a little miniature one. This one's never bloomed for me. Label. That's in pencil. I don't know whether the camera's going to focus enough on that to be able to read it. Well, either you can or you can't. Fukujumaru, or something like that. I don't speak Japanese. Yeah, it's a nice little plant. It would be nice if it had some nice little blooms on it, but so far it just hasn't. But it seems to be growing better. Since it went in the moss, there seems to be just more life. The plant just seems to look more alive. These fans look more sturdy. So possibly just not getting hydrated enough before, but it certainly is now. And that is a much more traditional way of growing neos, is in moss. So we'll see how they do now. Okay, last two. And I think as a result of these two, I've been kicked out of a club. Because I used to be one of the founder members of the I Kill Zygos club. And I've been kicked out. Yeah, thank goodness for that. I noticed somebody recently posted a video where they've just had a zygo disintegrate on them, and I had many. One had a virus, that's my excuse for that one, but I think I've killed four including the virus one. Anyway, recent acquisition, my mouth won't work, on this one, and it was at an auction, and this is the plant I wanted. Unfortunately it was a box of 3, so I got 2 others that I wouldn't have bought otherwise, but I wanted this one. And it had a new growth just sort of getting going on it, which has pushed on leaps and bounds and is now starting to mature. And it has another, I would suggest, new growth, highly likely. It's unlikely to be a spike, but anyway, it's growing. It's not dead. Yay! And this one I bought in bloom a while ago. It hasn't bloomed since, but it was a good blooming, and some of the spikes were only just coming into bud, so I managed to complete their flowering. And you know, this one's doing okay. It's got a nice new growth here on this side of the plant, and a good set of new roots coming out underneath that growth. It's got another new growth over this side, pushing on nicely, with associated new roots. But no sign of spikes on those 2 new growths. I mean, I think it's going to have to re-establish the root system, which wasn't very good prior to it doing anything else. But this new growth here has got that, and that's been sat there. Sorry, I've got a leaf in the way. That's been sat there looking like that for some time now. It's got a couple of little roots coming out from underneath it, but it doesn't seem to want to grow. So I've got my eye on that in case there's a problem lurking. But anyway, I have 2 living Zygopetalums that are both showing progress. So we're definitely off the not dead yet list, and kicked out of the I Kill Zygos club. Now I've got a soggy knee where the carpet's wet. Never mind. Okay, that's the end of this set, and as I said at the beginning of this video, because of the way I'm going to do the end of season updates, now that I've finished the mid-season, and obviously the starter season have long since been filed away securely, I can now start my end of season updates, because for each orchid I've got 2 video clips to open and 2 stills to take from each clip and store away ready for the end of season. So I can be working on these in what I call the boredom days. The days where there's hardly anything to water, like today, I've just gone round with the sprayer and done a few of the dailies, like Tulumnias and a couple of others, but nothing else to water out here today. So, you know, on a quiet afternoon when it's raining, or the weather's rubbish, or it's, you know, whatever, I can be just beavering away at that sort of thing. It probably sounds sad to a lot of you, but I like mucking around on the computer and doing stuff. Reminds me of when I used to earn my living that way. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed this set. It has sort of shown every single plant briefly, and we'll start a new lot at the end of the growing season, which will be dependent on weather. The end of the growing season here is when it breaks out of autumn into winter, and the days are so short that activity just slows right down. Now, some years that's towards the end of October. Sometimes we get into November with bright days. Now, yes, they're short days, but they're bright days, and things carry on that extra week or two. But probably from about mid-October onwards, we'll start that next series. Okay, thanks for dropping by. See you next time. Not dead zygos. Love it.